same little thing that says live on Facebook. I think you and I are on right now.
Sweet.
We did it.
Wow.
Everyone, Foodservice Power Plant Network, thanks for joining us tonight. We've got the man, the myth, the legend, Brad Wasserstrom joining us. I didn't know what to say. It was just like,
it's amazing just because everything there was almost entirely wrong, but okay, go ahead.
I didn't say this was going to be about truth. We're just, it is what it is.
Mhm.
Brad Wasserstrom, I don't know when people, like on my screen, Brad, you're here right above me, but I think on Facebook, you might be there. So I'm trying to point the right direction where your face is, but I'm not entirely sure. You know what? Nikki Ruffley just texted me and said, where do I go to see the presentation? Thought it was live on the page. It's live now. There we go. Brad, thanks for joining us. How the heck are you, man?
Doing good. These are crazy times, and our definition of the word good, I think, has changed. But I think considering everything we're going through, where the world is, I'm all right. It could be a lot worse. I've got friends in more dire straits than we are. And certainly there's people thriving in these times, but we're doing okay.
Well, good. Sometimes in our family, when we're going through a particularly tough time, we've always said sometimes surviving is a win.
Yeah.
You're not thriving, you're not killing it, but if you are still upright and we are still a family, a nucleus that's together, we're going to call that a win, even if life feels like it sucks right now.
Yeah. And I try to tell my girls, I've got a 12 and a 14-year-old, and I try to tell them how blessed we are. When this started and, oh my gosh, we're going to be locked down in this house, that's terrible. I'm like, girls, we're really blessed with the house we have.
Sure.
And it's not over the top or anything, but they have their own bedrooms. Everyone has their own devices. So we're not like 5 people in a 1,100 square foot 2-bedroom house,
yeah,
right? With 1 bathroom trying to get by. So it could be a lot tougher for us. Not that it's easy, to your point, but if you don't have these times, you don't really appreciate maybe the good times. And I think as a society, we came to take the good stuff for granted a little bit. And in our business, in fact, just today I was talking about, we're working on our budgeting right now. Our fiscal year starts October 1. And I was saying it's so hard right now to budget. I have clarity of our first quarter that's decent. I don't know what happens in January, let alone next June. And in the past, we had history to go from. You could just say, well, this is what it's going to be like. And you're right, within 5 or 10% minus, a large new account coming on board or whatever. That's out the window, right? Can you tell me what winter will be like here in the Midwest? I don't know what's going to happen to patios in November or December. I don't know what's going to happen with a vaccine, if one's approved. I don't know. I had someone text me tonight and they said they heard there'll be one ready by November 1st.
I saw that tonight too.
Well, that'd be great, right? That'd be great. Who knows? We might find out in a week that it's got all these horrible side effects. I don't know. The world changes so fast right now. Just try to take it minute by minute and, just appreciate each day for what we have. My girls the fact that they were told they get to go back to school in a couple weeks, I never thought I would get to a point where my girls could not wait for school. This is like the highlight of their year, is going back to school all of a sudden. So it's not all bad.
It is funny about how your perspective on things changes, right? At one point in my life, at the end of the day, I'd be like, oh my God, no more emails. And now I'm like, give me as many emails as the world can send me. Like, I'll take them. Let's rock them. Let's, turn them into orders. It is funny how that happens. I didn't ask you this in the questions but you just said the world moves so fast right now. Is there something that you do to sort of ground yourself in a world that is going so fast that could pick you up and carry you along with it? Is there something that you find that you do that just sort of centers you back and grounds you a little bit?
Yeah. What I'll do is sometimes I'll just, up until now, this summer, one of the highlights of this was when I broke for lunch, I would walk upstairs. I'm working from home most days. I go in like a day a week, 2 days a week. And the 7 or 8 of us that are there, kind of whatever. But I got to go upstairs and have lunch with my daughters. And I got to spend time with them that I wouldn't normally. And I know when I go upstairs, I might be having just a really crappy morning, but I got to tone it way down. I can't take it out on them. That's not fair. So that always kept me centered, right? And sometimes I'll just take a break. I like to do puzzles, Sudoku puzzles.
Yeah.
I can get myself lost in it. And, I do some that are kind of hard. I find a little clue that gives me to another clue that gets me to another clue that gets me to a number or whatever. I'll do something like that, take 5 minutes to do one of those just to break. In the old world, I would get up and just walk around, or I would leave the office and go to the warehouse or the store or whatever. And well, you can't do that. So you got to find other ways. You can't be on 24/7. That's impossible.
Yeah, I agree. Are you a nighttime worker typically?
Well, define worker, right?
Are you
on
answering
call.
emails from, up until 11 at night or something like that? Or is there a timeline that you're like, you know what, I'm shutting her down at this time?
I kind of, my day goes, I wake up, I'll look at my email first thing in the morning to see if there was anything overnight, but I'll put it down real quick. And then you asked the question about, is there like a daily ritual I have? The morning is my ritual. It's the one time I'm in this house that it's silent. And I drink coffee, I read the news, and I just try to get myself mentally there. And then, so I look first thing in the morning, I'll get dressed, have breakfast, and I start my day. When I'm done, I put my phone down in my locker by the garage. I'll plug it in and I'll leave it for an hour or two. We'll have dinner. We'll talk as a family. As much as a teenager talks. Sorry, Chelsea, if you're watching. Just calling it the way it is. We'll talk, and then after dinner, I'll just sit, and I might have mail. I might be reading a magazine, whatever. But I'll definitely check again by the time the night's over. And there'll be 10 to 15 emails I'll probably have to deal with, do something with, and get rid of those. I try not to do it too close to bed, because then you never know which one has got the hidden nasty surprise that you're going to be up all night dealing with.
Yep.
There's just too much infighting between these ears sometimes.
I hear you. Are you somebody who makes decisions really quickly typically? Are you like, no?
No, I like to give me the information and then I'll let it marinate. And sometimes it's an hour or two, but sometimes it's a day, 2 days. There is something to this world is going so fast, but sometimes you sleep on it and you wake up and you just know the answer. It just hits you differently. I like to have different conversations with different people about it and get some different perspectives. So I take my time generally. There's some things I'll just fire off the gut, because if you're between the 40s, it's fine. There's just others I want to get closer to the 50 and I want to take my time with them. And sometimes I think my team might get frustrated with me. I take too much time, but that's just, whatever. What can I say?
Get your drink.
I have to water up. So my doctor, I had a kidney stone like a month ago, and went in for the follow-up. He said, well, the good news is it's really easy. You're not prone to any food or anything like that to cause it. You just don't drink enough water. And I said, well, how can that be? And I told him what I did. He goes, no, you need to drink about 2 liters of water a day. Now, I'm like, look, I'm headed towards middle age, whatever you want to call it. I'm already up during the night, all this stuff. How often do you want me to be? Whatever. So I'm trying to sip water all the time now.
Let a guy sleep, Doc.
Exactly.
I just need some sleep.
How do you expect me to do my best work? Right.
I hadn't thought about that, but touche. As we get older, it does change, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I'm trying to drink a lot of water. That's my latest thing, I guess.
All right, good job. Way to follow the doctor's orders. I'm not going to get in the way of that. Do you consider yourself, Brad? There's a group about teaching people how to remain, give them tools, positive psychology tools, that you can handle things better when you're in a better state of mind than you can when you're in a crappy state of mind, for lack of a better term. Are you someone who do you consider yourself a generally positive, optimistic person?
No. I am I guess I would consider myself a realist. I think I like to get all sides of the story, like I said, and when I read the news, I don't go to one source. I have a lot of different sources I pull news in from. I like to get a whole well-rounded version of it. So I think in some ways, maybe because I read so much news, it's hard because this world is filled, especially if you read the news is never good, right?
Yep.
There's a psychological reason for it we don't need to get into today, but they sell more newspapers, you get more eyeballs on TV if it's negative. And I think that impacts me a little bit. I'm also a person that I'm never satisfied with our results. I always think we can do better. We can do better. And it is a fault that I don't celebrate the wins as much as maybe I should. But a lot of times I see, look, I want us to be the very best in the industry. To be there, here's what we left on the table. And so I think I tend to look at those as a way to push myself for betterment.
Yeah.
And I think that somewhat prevents me from being an optimist. But what I've done with my team, I've hired people that are very optimistic. Our CFO, particularly our VP of sales, very optimistic people. And so I find my role is kind of ground in something a little bit more conservative than optimism. If you go too far that direction, you could get yourself in real trouble. You quote unquote ski over your tips.
Yep.
So I maybe am the one that holds back a little bit, and it works for our team.
Good for you to know, where maybe possible strengths are needed or different perspectives are needed and hire there. There's a lot of people in our group looking for work. I guess it's a two-part question coming off of what you just said. As you're looking for people, or as you're teaching your daughters, let's say, as they're going up through school and they're tweens and teens or wherever they're at, probably around the same as my daughter just got into 6th grade starting Monday. What do you teach them of any traits to develop most, to foster, which are probably the same traits you look for in people that you're going to bring onto your team? What would those traits be that to you are most important to help you all get ahead right now?
All right. So only half of that did you give me on the prep question list. So I should start keeping track.
Occasionally,
yeah.
Brad.
I got to start keeping track of the questions. You're throwing me these curveballs. And I even I watched a couple of the previous episodes to try to get a handle on how these go. Okay. So, I think with my daughters, obviously you got to raise them to learn to know right from wrong and those sorts of things. But I want them to be inquisitive more than anything. I just want them to always be curious and always learn. My mom's mother, my grandmother on my mom's side, she taught me, any day that you go that you don't learn something new, you've wasted. It's about constantly learning. And so, in our company, I don't know if I've explicitly thought about it that way. But in our company, next year is going to be different than this year, which will be different than last year. Forget COVID. That's not my point. It's an ever evolving industry, and you have to keep up with it. As much as we think, well, spoons don't change a whole lot. Have you seen the latest innovations in tables? Still 4 legs and a top. There's a lot that changes. Maybe it's a little bit under the surface. So you got to keep your eyes open. But if you look back 5 or 10 years, look how different the industry is. So you have to be open to that. I think when I'm hiring, I hired this VP of sales. She's new to our company, been with us a little bit over a year. And when I went looking, I knew I could find certain things. These were the things that just got you to the table. The sales experience I was looking for, wholesale distribution, check. It really becomes about cultural fit. And for us, our culture is a big part of who we are. Our core values, I tell people all the time when I meet with all of our new hires, I used to, when we could meet, when we had new hires. I would meet with them though every month. And one thing I would tell them is, we go through our core values. My CFO and I sit there with him. We go through our core values, and we talk about each one. And I tell him a lot of, I say, if this isn't you, if these things are not your traits, you're not going to be successful here. I can find people that can answer phones. I can find people that do a lot of things, but how they blend in with the team, because it's about building a team. How you blend in with the team elevates that entire team. You see it all the time in sports, and I watch a lot of football. The people out there that are watching that know me, I'm a college football junkie, but it's, yeah, I like the wins and losses, but I also love watching how coaches manage the players, and how they're dealing with those situations that come up, and how they're really trying to get these superstars to put their egos aside, because sometimes this is what you're going to have. Today, you're not going to catch the ball. You're going to block, because today we're going to run the ball. That to me is what's fascinating. So to find people that fit our culture, and part of that would be always learning and changing and kind of rolling with the punches, I guess. You're going to have that to fit in and blend in with us and to go.
I remember when I came to your building, I was at your new building once, maybe a year ago, year and a half, and your values were right. You walk in those doors and the receptionist desk is on the right. And the values, as I recall, were right on that wall, right ahead of you to the left.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what they all were, but I remember thinking immediately, oh, this is like no company I've ever seen, where this is the first thing they want you to recognize about them. It isn't the first thing you want me to recognize isn't necessarily how big you are in the industry or, the bravado, the things you've accomplished. It's, this is who we are, and it's our values. And
the accomplishments follow, right? Yeah. We'll get those. Those are just whatever. But when we moved 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever it was, for about 2 years before we moved, that was a big part of my job, was figuring out what the new building would look like. And I gave it a lot of thought. Our old building looked like we were a 100-year-old company. It was an old building. You walked in, you were smacked with 2,000 square feet of historic archival artifacts. It was an old building, right? And the decor was old, and just everything about it. The only great thing about that building was the outside was great looking, and it was a great neighborhood. So when we moved, I said, I wanted people when they walked in immediately to know who we are. It's not what we are. All that stuff is whatever. That's the result. Who we are. So we put our core values and our vision and our mission statements right there, big and bold, like you said. It drives everything. Now, for me, it's really easy to live up to them. It's what I was raised with, right? It's who I am. That's our family's core values, basically, on the wall. And so I like the fact that you remember that. That says a lot. That's a point of pride for me.
There's no other place I've been where it was so front and center, someone's value. So, way to go. Okay, so let's talk about family real quick.
Yeah.
You are what generation at the Wasserstrom company?
I'm fourth. My great-grandfather started the company in 1902. Wow. What we call the company. He really just started a business at that point. And the business had to recreate several times over its history. So we have this spirit of entrepreneurship in our business. But he had 12 kids. And, well, I mean, it's 1902. You don't have TV. You don't have internet. What else do? You have kids. So he had this huge family, and he had to work, and he started tending bar at night. He bought the bar eventually, and he and a couple of sons were running the bar when Prohibition came. Okay. That's a bad business, right?
Yep.
It's kind of like having an airline in COVID times or something.
Right.
So they recreated that, and they turned it into a store that sold the supplies you needed to make home brew, which, wink, wink, was pretty much beer. And that store in Columbus grew into a chain of 12 stores. And Prohibition ended. Again, it's a bad business to be in. So we broke into two businesses. We took the business and created two new businesses. One was what you would call the modern day restaurant and bar equipment supply store. The other was we got the first wine distribution license in the state of Ohio after Prohibition. Now, what's interesting is, how do we get that? Well, we already knew where to get supply. if you know what I mean. One of my grandfather's brothers, his nickname was Boots, and it wasn't because of his footwear. So it turned, I mean, you know, it's a family of 12 kids. And during Prohibition, one of the ways my family put all these kids through college, fed all of them, housed them, we were bootleggers. So we recreated again, and we went forward, and over time we create businesses. Sometimes we sell them off, like the wine business we sold off.
Okay.
And sometimes the businesses continue with us. The restaurant bar supply is obviously our biggest business, but we have other businesses around that. We have a data center business that was a spinoff of our IT department.
What?
It's a whole different story, but yeah, we have this business here that we have, 30 or 35 clients now, only 2 of which are our own company. The Columbus Zoo became a customer.
Whoa.
So yeah, we're an outsource, our largest customer, non-company, we're their outsourced IT department pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. So we got all kinds of little things.
Do you still have like the family recipes?
For what? For the wine?
Yeah.
Well, we didn't make it. What we did is we brought in wine by the train car from California. And I said train car. So you can imagine right there the type of wine we're talking about.
Sure.
It came in by train car to Columbus, and it was pumped up to the 5th or 6th floor in the building we were in, where we would bottle it. Columbus. At the office, I've got a whole bunch of the labels we used to put on the essentially a 3PL bottling for other people. Our name was never on it. And we'd bottle it, and then we had a sales force that would go out. And I guess my grandfather's generation, they thought, well, this is a great business. We're going to sell bar equipment and supplies, including glassware, and we'll have another salesperson go in and sell wine. And it worked for a long time. It worked from Prohibition up until we sold that business, I think, in the 70s.
Wow, how cool.
Yeah.
Was your family just generally a family of entrepreneurs? Let's go start something?
I don't know if it's let's go start something. It's more we're in our business and we're doing something, and we see a part of our business that makes sense in another way. So like our IT business, we had essentially what you would call our data center within our old building on the 2nd floor. And the room was getting hot. We put in air conditioning. Then one day they came to me and the floor was sagging, and we had an engineer come. He says, you have too much weight. You got to get a lot of this weight out of there. So we signed up with a third-party data center, and we moved a rack of servers to their data center. And I'm looking at the cost one day, and I go, this is insane. For what we're paying them, I'll bet I could go out and find a building. And so I talked to my uncle, who's the president of our real estate company, and he found a building that AT&T had just bought a small internet provider here in Columbus. And they had that building, and they wanted to get rid of it. And they were selling it at a heavy discount as long as you took it with all of the equipment in it. So we bought the building, we took all the equipment out, gave it to a reseller on consignment to help defray the cost, and we moved in. So we have a data center that's got 2 sources of electric, and it's got 2 air conditioning systems, and it's got a generator the size of a small office that can run the building, and it's got diesel and a tank that would last it 7 days, and et cetera, et cetera. But the building was too big for us. So I said, we should turn this into a business and start selling data center space, because I also knew from this other company what the markup is, right? It's crazy. So it's just a nice little business, and it's got really nice returns. It's a lot different than selling spoons, for sure. It's a nice little business. It's got it's in its, I would call it at this point, headed into teenage years. Okay. It's starting to get its legs under it. And I said, at this point, we've got the thing built. We really need to work on our sales. Every dollar of sales we in here almost entirely falls to the bottom line at this point. It's such a overhead intensive business. Yeah. It's a service business. So it's a nice thing. And then we have this great, well, I don't know if my people today would agree, because we had a system issue today, but we've got this great data center that's got redundancy and backup and T1 lines everywhere. And it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice.
Way to go. I love it. What do you do? One of the things we talk about in the group is helping people recharge their batteries, figure out what motivates someone, what brings them life. And one of those things is figure out what brings you joy and go do that. Outside of maybe Sudoku, which sort of centers you and challenges you.
That's a 5 minute. Right.
So what's your thing? What's your hobby? Your thing that when you're not working and when you're not looking at the emails and even when you're not necessarily hanging out with the girls, right? Hanging out with your family. Yeah. What are you doing?
So my thing is I've got this nice man cave at home. I come down here, I turn on the greatest mix of my life. It's just, I call it my GOAT. It took me a long time to build, but it's every great song I've ever heard, basically.
Okay.
And it's in one mix. Every song is, for me, it's an upbeat song with a positive message, and there's no sad songs in it. I shouldn't say that, there probably are, but they have a good beat, so you can dance to it. And I'll pour myself a glass and I'll play pinball. I've got 4 pinball machines, and I completely lose myself for 45 minutes to an hour on trying to keep that stupid silver ball from draining down below the bumpers. And it's you lose yourself. It's like anything else. You get so focused on it. I play golf now and then. I'm terrible. I don't have the time to put in to become a very good golfer. But my parents had a pinball machine when I was growing up. Okay. And that was my first one. It's one of the ones here in my basement. And so I just play pinball. And I could sit there and play for a long time, listen to music, and it's just like my happy place.
That's awesome. I have follow-up questions, but first, I'm trying to see if I can see comments, questions. Let's see if I can. Mary Margaret Dunn is she's loving hearing your family history. Taz is on. He's with Walmart Corporate. He's loving it. Kaya says this is way past my bedtime, but it's you, so she's on.
I can't read you what Ari Cantor's saying about us. My cousin just forwarded that to me, and that's filled with F-bombs. So, yeah.
We can edit it out when we share it.
I got it. Yeah, a couple people shouted out to me. They like what we're doing.
Good. What drink are you grabbing? When you go and you're about to turn on the music and play, is it a spirit, is it a beer, or is it a glass of wine?
It's a spirit. I'm a whiskey guy, especially American whiskey, with, of course, a heavy bend to Kentucky, partly because its proximity. I've been down there a number of times. But yeah, in fact, one of my favorites is from your neighborhood. My wife and I discovered on one of our trips out there, Stranahan's.
Oh, yeah.
Like Stranahan's. I got a bottle of the red one. Oh, is that good? The red label. That's hard to get in this part of the country.
Okay. But, duly noted. Right off 25. I see it like every time I drive.
Well, I'm giving a shout to anyone on there that wants to send, just send them to me. It's a little bit not allowed in Ohio, but we've already covered off that we were bootleggers. So
right. Clearly that's not a problem for your family.
Right.
Is there a tunnel that did your family ever create a tunnel under a road to start distributing and moving alcohol during Prohibition? I'm curious.
Well, so I don't know. No, I don't think so. I don't think there was a tunnel under a road. I don't know how they did it. I was told though that a couple of my uncles would go to Canada. They'd go across Lake Erie, or they'd go to Chicago, and that's where they picked up wine and spirits during Prohibition.
I love it. Awesome. Okay, second question. Your mix, your song mix.
Yeah.
Do you ever share that with anyone, or is that like this stays in the man cave? It doesn't leave the man cave?
There's one person that's ever gotten a copy of it, and that's my cousin Eric, who Ari was texting with.
Okay.
I don't know if Eric knows that he's the only one that has a copy of it. It doesn't stay down here. That's almost all I listen to in my car. It's like at this point, I don't know, it's 18 or 1900 songs.
Oh my.
So it's not like I put it in my car and I only have a 10-minute drive to work. So it lasts me 6 months or 8, whatever, until I ever hear a repeat song. It's the greatest radio station It's commercial free, it's talk free, and every song I think is awesome.
Give me your favorite song that you go to from it.
Oh, I don't have one. I don't know. It's interesting. You could if I hit play, and it's always on random, by the way.
Okay.
Always random. And if you were to scroll through it, you see the periods of my life where I really got into certain bands. You could just tell, because there's a whole lot more Led Zeppelin than there is of Django Django, for instance.
That's good.
But my favorite song, I don't know. I could tell you what the song is. I think of the all-time greatest song, I think, is John Lennon Imagine. And that's probably the only slow song on that mix.
Okay.
But I think it has such an uplifting message, right?
Mm-hmm. I almost posted a quote from that. I go find like motivational quotes and throw in the group, and a line from that song is like the first page of this whole motive. It's like 1,500 quotes or 15,000.
Yeah, actually, oh no, that's a different song. I got one of his song lyrics up here on the wall.
I was talking to someone today, and I was like, "Hey, Brad's going to be on the show tonight," and they're like, "Did you know?"
Got to wash my hair. I'm not going to be tuning in, is what they said, right?
No, they're like, "Hey, did you know? I think Brad might be a deadhead." And that you've been to a fair amount of shows.
Who are you talking to? That's spot on.
Those shall remain nameless.
Well, actually, that's a little bit unfair.
It was your buddy Gary Cohen. You know Gary?
Yeah.
I
am. I got into him in college for the wrong reasons. Not the wrong reasons, but it was the party scene. And we would go to the parking lot and, we're 21, whatever, drinking beer, have the show, whatever. And then when they, and I listened to him a little bit, Jerry died, and that was the end of that. And then when they got back together for their 50th, and I didn't go to another show. I'd been to a few shows then. And then we go forward in life, and I don't know what it was, 5-6 years ago, they get together for their 50th anniversary. And a buddy of mine, who back in the day was a big deadhead, far bigger than I was back then, said, "You want to go?" I said, "Yeah, it'd be great." And so I pulled out what I had and I started listening to it again. And, time really, it aged very well for me. And I realized these guys are legendary, not because of the scene. They're legendary because they were so freaking good. And the fact that they did whatever it was, 2,500 concerts, never did the same set list, never played the same song the same way twice, And as you listen to them, they have their country period, and they have their disco period, and they have their R&B period, and you can hear it in the same song. They play it differently over different eras. So I was just blown away by their talent. I mean, the way that they can improv and make it sound like they've practiced that hundreds of times, and it's the only time they ever played it that way.
That's incredible.
Yeah, they're but I'm a Beatles guy, right? I like Led Zeppelin a lot. There's a lot of bands, and I tend to go back to what I listened to growing up. I think there's some good music now that I certainly like, but it's not like it was for me. There's something in the, and I've been to a lot of shows, not as many as Mr. Eric Ellingson, by the way. I did catch that part. I mean, he's like next level to me in a lot of ways too, by the way. But I've been to a lot of shows, and some of the new bands I like a lot, but I'm just always pulled back to the classic stuff. There's a reason for me why it's classic just rings to me. And Led Zeppelin, they're just awesome, right? They're just awesome. And when I was a kid, I thought they were awesome because they were like hard rock. Now I think they're awesome because I could hear the blues and the R&B coming through. And plus there's something, it's a little bit of a security blanket, maybe. You remember good times. Music does that. Music has a way of connecting these points in your life. And I'm lucky. Our family, I'm the least talented in this family when it comes to music, but my wife is a musician. My daughter was taking piano lessons for a while. My other daughter now, she's playing drums, and she takes ukulele lessons, and there's always music somewhere, it feels like, in this house. It's great.
It is funny how music can capture an emotion.
Hmm.
in a moment. Like I still remember, not like I've listened to them outside of eighth grade, but like for me in eighth grade, it was like Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I remember the tie-dye sheet that I pinned to my ceiling. And I also remember it being a somewhat dark period of time in my life for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the tie-dye or the Red Hot Chili Peppers or just being an eighth grader, but
Yeah.
they all blend.
Yeah. I saw them in concert and they were good, but the opening band was Foo Fighters, who blew away the Chili Peppers.
Oh man.
And I became a big Foo Fighter fan at that point. Dave Grohl, I think, is an amazing guy. And the appreciation he has for music of all genres is pretty impressive too. Um, yeah, yeah.
That's fun to know. Um, okay, question for you from one of our members, Mitch Marcotte. You know Mitch out of
I
Boston?
don't know Mitch.
He's a rep out of Boston. Great guy. One of my
Yeah,
good friends. He
yeah.
asked ahead of time, he said, what is Brad's best guess at somewhat of a timeline for this recovery? What the next months, year look like?
Yeah. So I think it's all changed because you and I were talking a little bit ago before this that just tonight someone texted me they heard there may be a vaccine by November 1. I don't know if that's true or not. So I'm going to go off of let's say it's December 31 as a round number, right? There's going to be a vaccine. I do believe there'll be a vaccine. I believe in science.
Mhm.
The question is when. I don't know if these 10 that they're trying out or whatever it is, if any of them will work or not, but you got to make an assumption.
Yep.
So I think if by the end of the year there's a vaccine, I believe the decisions will be made. You got to take care of the elderly, the people with real health at risk issues first, frontline workers, our emergency workers. So that's going to take some time. And from what I read, all but one of these vaccines are 2 doses.
Oh, wow.
And the second dose is 3 to 4 weeks after the first. So then you start doing the math. If you got everyone in this country, which you're not going to, but if you had to get everyone in this country vaccinated, you need something like 650 or 700 million doses. Now, unfortunately, I don't think we've done a really good job rolling out things like testing. And we're talking about rolling out hundreds of millions of doses and getting people inoculated. So I think it's going to take a while. But I think what I've told people in our company, I think the worst for our industry is this next period of time, these next couple months. I think we've gotten to a level of stability, and I might be clouded because I'm here in the Midwest and a lot of our business is here. We're about to hit winter and patios are going to go away. And a lot of the restaurants and bars right now are surviving on patios. So when those go away, there's going to be a drop in business for the winter in a large part of the country. And in places like Phoenix, we're not going to have a tourism season like we normally have. You're just not going to have that travel. So I think there's going to be some real lean times coming up. But then I think when we get to spring, between a vaccine being there and you're in line at some point, the optimism around that, and just the fact that spring will come again, flowers will bloom, patios will reopen, I think then we're off to the races. And I think food service, travel, entertainment, things like amusement parks, zoos, they're going to go crazy. Our society is so cooped up that people will be itching to get out when they feel comfortable. So I kind of think it's next summer. My dad and I were talking about it this week. He's leaning towards April, May. I'm thinking it's maybe June, July. But I don't think it's, in the grand scheme of everything, I don't think it's that long, but it's going to feel long. And for people we're blessed in our company. We've got a base of business that some of our segments have done relatively well during this. We do a lot of fast food.
Sure.
And so that's carried us in a lot of ways. But I have a lot of friends, in dealerships that are hurting really badly. I've got a lot of friends in manufacturers that are hurting. I wouldn't want to be a tabletop manufacturer right now, right? That's tough sledding. It's going to feel still like a long way. It's a tough grind. But I think it's next summer. I think 2021, I could be wrong. I believe in science, but maybe none of these turn out to be a really good path. I don't really like to think about what that means for long term, but so there you go. So this is the part where we remind people. So I had my daughters, I told my daughters about this, and they watch a lot of these YouTube videos, food surprises and whatever. So this is the part of the video where we go, okay, if you like this, be sure to subscribe down below, leave your comments down below.
You know what? That is a great point, Brad. And obviously, I'm trying to check, by the way, to see if people have questions. Sometimes the technology doesn't always work, so I can't see if people have questions right now. If you do and you have my number, just text me. I will see it more that way. Of course, thanks to the incredible folks at Cal-Mill for sponsoring these conversations. Side note, and for all the members who come in and they watch and they throw questions, and it really has been, there's a silver lining. Well, maybe not in everything, but in a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And, I think one of the silver linings, this group, for me personally, for my family, I think for our team, seeing people come together, support one another in tough times. I guess that I didn't ask you this question either, but you were talking about your friends, other dealers or manufacturers. Has the uniqueness of this time and the challenge connected you with some of your competitors in different ways, other dealers, to say, what are you thinking that you can help me with, or vice versa? Like, has that happened at all, or no, pretty much people are still doing their own deal and figuring out the waters on their own? No, I think I'm more of I don't think this changed it. My dad always taught me, years ago, I remember there was a feeder or something out in Phoenix, and my dad took Fred Singer through our warehouse. And I hadn't met Fred. I mean, this was really early on in my career. Maybe I'd met Fred, but we weren't friendly at this point. And I said, "Really, Dad? You're going to take a competitor through?" He said, "It's our job. It's our responsibility. Because if we could rise a boat, if we could rise the water, all boats rise with it." And he believed that if we could share best practices, that it's just the best for the whole community. So the people I'm friends with, I've been relatively open with, and we talk about a lot of things. There's some friends I have, certainly you're a little bit more guarded than others. You're a little bit more directly competing. That's a little bit different. But I've always had friends in our industry, and I've talked to them during this. And this has maybe made it more, we've talked more about how are you doing? And how is your family doing? And what are you doing to get through this? Rather than hey, what do you do on receivables? Because I need some tips, or whatever it is, whatever your problem du jour is. So it's maybe made those connections deeper. It's definitely been more human interactions than business interactions over this period. We're in a hospitality industry, so I've always felt friendly and warm feelings for almost all of my competitors. There's certainly some I don't like, whose names will be unmentioned. Text me later if you want to know who they are. But for the most part, I just, this industry is a large part. It's my community. So there's no ill will, and it's kind of like I said earlier, I'm not a golfer, but it is like golf, running the business. I can only focus on my game. I can't do anything about their game. You can't play defense in golf. So you keep your eye on the scoreboard and kind of know where you are, but you just focus on yourself and go. And if they beat you because they're truly better, well, then the task isn't shame on them. It's you got to look at yourself and say, what do we need to do to beat them next time? I love it. You take ownership of your experience and your story. Tell me about, this was another question, left field. It wasn't in the memo ahead of time.
All right, I'm writing it down.
So I was, E plus R equals O.
Yeah.
It's something you all preach.
I'm wearing it.
Up.
I need that.
I need to get that. I'll find you. I'll
send you one.
You get me a bracelet.
I'll send you one.
Okay. Yeah. So E plus R equals O profoundly impacted my life, 11 years ago.
Okay.
And for everyone who's watching, we talk about in the group sometimes, an event plus your response equals the outcome. And I learned about this because I was doing, when I had that hiatus from work, I was like figuring out how to pump people up and doing those videos on LinkedIn and all this kind of stuff, keeping people going. And I got to do a little session with one of your Arizona teams, like, hey, just a little motivational something, keep people going. And I got tripped up because like my go-to, like my left punch to knock people on their tail is E plus R equals O. And they were all like, oh yeah, we know about that. And I was like, oh, you do?
Yeah.
All right, let me go read another book and find something else that you don't know about. So tell me why E plus R equals O for you. Why it's affected you.
So I mentioned earlier, when I watch college football, it's a lot about the football and just the enjoyment of it. And there's the whole thing of my dad started going to games with his dad. I started games as a kid with my dad. Now I'm taking my kids with my dad. That whole connection. My uncle comes with it. It's great. It's a family thing for us. But besides that, there's so many lessons you can learn just by watching sports, organizational management lessons. And Urban Meyer, who had a psychology degree, was really good at motivating these kids. Yeah. And it's one of the reasons he probably never went to the NFL. His style wouldn't work. But he understands these are kids. They're very impressionable. And he would hit these buttons with them. And he would have these sayings that would be the theme for the year. So one year it was the grind, and one year it was the chase. Well, this one particular year it was E plus R equals O. He had met a teacher of that here in Columbus. Huh. And he brought him in and he taught the team, look, things happen. You can't control what happens. You can only control how you respond, and the way you respond will determine the outcome. And so I've had that in my head. And when this all came down, there were two things that I really started preaching to the team. There was the story of the buffalo was one, and that one didn't stick quite as much. But I have a little buffalo in my office I've shown people. And this was inspired by my cousin Eric. The buffalo out on the prairie, when a snowstorm would come, all animals would run away except for the buffalo. As a herd, they turn into it because they understand the best way to get through a storm is to go into it, and you come out faster. So I told our team, when all this came down, I in my communication out to the entire team, I told the story of the buffalo. And I said, we're going to head into it. And that's when I'm singing Eric Ellingson's praises again. I'm not going to use the P word. We turned on a spot, whatever you would call that, right?
It's not the P word. I'm with you.
Yeah. So we turned, and I have got some executives that came from Cardinal Health, so they had some connections into the healthcare world. And of course, we always sold things like thermometers and gloves, and we got into PPE really quick. And that was one way that we turned and went into the storm to come out the other side. At the same time, I was also reading, and I understood quickly that this was going to be a mental challenge getting through this as much as anything else. For the people in our company, we're blessed to have a company that's stable and solid. Survival is not a question. It's more, how do we keep ourselves up? And how do we go through this? And so I took on this E plus R equals O. Look, we can't feel bad for ourselves because of the E. That's there. We can't do anything about it. How we respond will determine where we come in the outcome. Now, I'm always learning every day. I have to get a lot better at these things, right? And I understand sometimes I don't always show my best self, right? We all have off days. So I got these bracelets for everyone back when we thought we'd be back in the office in a couple of weeks, and we'll give everyone a bracelet. So I've got like 400 bracelets sitting in our office waiting for everyone to come back. But actually, I think our people out of town, we mailed them. But so I wear this bracelet every day, and I just think to myself, okay, how am I going to respond to whatever it is? I get flooded with email like everyone else. I get calls. I've got meetings, virtual meetings, and there's just a lot that comes at me. And sometimes I have to remind myself, just take a deep breath. Lou Holtz used to say, it's never as good as you think it is, and it's never as bad as you think it is. And sometimes I got to remind myself of that, just it's not as bad as you think. The world's not ending. It'll be fine. Let's make a decision, move on. E plus R equals O. I'm going to send you a bracelet. I've made myself a note.
I can't wait. It's like I live by that formula, man.
You want black and white, or you want scarlet and gray?
Just surprise me.
Okay.
Whatever you think best fits my complexion.
That's loaded.
I don't know. Scarlet and gray.
All right. You got it.
You've got a lot of these principles, a lot of this positive psychology. You've been just churning it out, Brad, through this whole conversation. I think even though you might not be naturally an optimistic person, and certainly we don't preach just, put blinders on and ignore reality, right? That's certainly not what positive is about in the context of what we do here in this group. But you seem to be ingrained and live out of a lot of these principles, I think, just in your nature. I mean, another business you might turn to is motivational speaking as another side.
Oh, no. I have a face for radio. This face is made for radio. I appreciate that. I think sometimes I don't give myself enough credit, probably. I'm down in the fight every day, right? And it's like we were talking about earlier when we were talking about the news. You get blasted with a lot of bad news. Well, a lot of that is true at work too. We have a call center, and I tell the people there, you're not going to get a lot of calls from someone calling you to tell you, hey, thank you so much. We got what we ordered. It was exactly what we ordered, and we got it the day we thought we'd get it, and you charged us the right amount. Those aren't the calls we're going to get very often. It's the other stuff. But we tell our people, we remind them, we take in 30,000 orders a week. And when you look at our list of error codes, when someone calls in, we code every return, every complaint, we track it. And when you look at our list of error codes, the biggest single one is the customer made the mistake, and they've self-admitted it. Now, how many customers self-admit that, right? So that's already there, right? But number two is it's the freight carrier had a problem. They damaged it, whatever. So when you boil this out, we don't have a whole lot of errors in our company. It feels like a lot because we have people that they're on the phones with the customers every day. Yeah. And they're either taking an order or they're taking a issue. So it feels like a lot to them, but it really isn't. So when I'm in the day, I don't necessarily think of myself as an optimist. I'm being bombarded with this stuff that's going wrong. Hey, I need your help. As we talk like this, higher level, and you separate yourself out and take a look back, I'm really lucky, right? I've got a great home life. I've got 2 terrific daughters. I've got a business that is, okay, it's not thriving, but we're doing okay. We've got segments of our business that are doing pretty well, holding up the rest, waiting for the rest to catch up. And it will. I 100% believe in our industry. We're a social people that want to eat out, right? We don't want to be home cooking and cleaning every night. Our industry will come back. It'll reinvent itself. It's done it time and time again. So we just need the rest to catch up. From that angle, yeah, when we talk like this, I understand. I'm blessed. I'm really lucky.
I appreciate the way you approach it.
Thank you.
And I have to think that your team does as well. We're almost out of time, and I want to honor your time. I know you're on the East Coast. Is there are you a crier at all?
No, but I know the question because this is one you gave me. And there is a movie every single time. I'm going to cry if I watch Brian's song every single time.
I've never seen it.
Oh my gosh. It's from the late 60s, I want to say, 1970-ish.
Okay.
It's James Caan and Lando Calrissian himself, Billy D. Williams. Billy D. Williams plays Gale Sayers.
Okay.
And what gets me, it's a true story. And it's about the Chicago Bears. They're 2 Chicago Bears players. Gale Sayers probably would have won. I think he was he's the second best running back Chicago's ever had. They had this other guy who was pretty good too. And James Caan plays a guy named Brian Piccolo, who I think he was a linebacker. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I haven't watched it in a long time. But he develops cancer during the season, and the team plays for him. And it was Gale Sayers' best friend. So you see this movie that's from a point in time when this is going to be really topical now. Racial relations were not as good as they could be, and you have a black and a white player who become best friends. And as one player is getting sicker and sicker, and they're dedicating games to him, and there's just a point in the movie you're going to cry. The other one is the champ, Ricky. What was this? Ricky Schroeder as the boxer's son. Oh, that one will get you every time.
Okay.
You need a good cry. The champ does it. And I'm about to say a third, and I'm realizing they're all sports movies. The Natural. The Natural does it for me.
Was that Robert Redford?
Yeah. Baseball player who, in theory would have been the best ever, but he makes some bad life choices. And at the end, he has this redemption and second chance at what he finds is true success. It's not on the baseball field. It's love and a child. And it's different than the book. I ended up reading the book after I saw the movie. The book is much darker. So this is one where I said the movie was better. That's the way that movie should have ended. And that's a great movie. That's a fabulous movie.
Let's end with this. And I set us up to go till 8. It's 2 minutes. If in the slight chance that Zoom just shuts us off mid-answer, let me just preemptively say, we really appreciate you being on.
It's my pleasure. It's always great talking to Jason, and I appreciate what you're doing to keep people's spirits up. I watched some of your videos on how to be positive, and great messages. Good stuff. Good
awesome
stuff.
It's every time I told my wife, like every time I see Brad, it's not super often, but every time we do, we get like 30 minutes or an hour and we just go deep. We go like submarines to like the hardest challenges of the industry. And we're like, all right, this is what I see. How are you solving it? What are we doing? And those conversations are always some of the most fun for me.
They're great. Yeah.
I agree.
We're not going to have a showcase this year to invite you to.
I know, I was bummed, but we get this. So we're this is our different way. Let me end with this because you just talked about in The Natural, he had to realize what success really meant for him.
Yeah.
What does success mean to you?
So I'm really very internally competitive. I don't know if there's anyone as competitive as I am when you talk about my internal, how I push myself. Success to me is over time getting better every day at whatever that is. It's my bond with my wife and children, or it's the business, whatever it is, just be a little bit better tomorrow. And if I have that over the long term, you're going to have failures. You're going to step back sometimes and you're not going to be better the next day, but you come back and the next day you're better and the next day you're better. And if you do that at the end, I'll be able to look back and say that was a success, the whole thing. I learn something new every day, just be a little bit better every day. And I believe in trying to leave the world a little bit better than it was when I came into it. And I've probably already crossed that off because I brought in these two. I didn't. My wife did. I was just there for the ride. These two wonderful daughters. But that's it right there. It's not more complicated than that. It's not about things and, wealth or any of that. It's certainly not about accolades. It's just about being a little bit better. And if a couple people along the road go, I really like spending time with you, I like our chats, that's all bonus, right? Yeah. Try to enjoy it. I'm not always able to. I mean, sometimes I'm really hard on myself, but you try to enjoy the ride. So
I think I'd be hard pressed to find a better definition of success than continually growing and getting better. And like you said, leaving the world in a little better place, or every individual you connect with in some degree. So I appreciate that. I like how you look at it.
It was truly my pleasure being here. It was a blast. Great talking to you, Jason.
Brad, loved it. Thanks for joining us. I know it's late. Thank your family for letting us take you from them. We'll do it again sometime. All the best to you and your team as you keep going and grinding and serving your customers. And thanks so much. We'll do it again soon.
You got it. Thank you. Right back at you. Bye.
Bye, buddy.